I do talk of like that. What you're talking about is literally championing in those behaviours that you want to see in others, because a lot of the time, especially in big organisations, there's a lot of what I've seen is there's a lot of, I want them to do that, but within my own home team, I don't feel safe to do that because it's not going to land very well with X, Y, and Z, or the leader's not going to like it. So it is around, but if you want to see that change, you have to positively bring that change forward. You know, let's drop the competitiveness, let's drop the what if, let's drop the gatekeeping almost, and then just be that person that you would want to see. And then usually you see like the changing of behaviours that way. But it goes so much deeper than that, you know, as you both have highlighted, and all are like, people are just at different stages on that journey. I do
Depends
think
on the organisation as well. I mean, having been part of your organisation for a number of years, I mean, the leadership there was very, very toxic. And trying to get to a point where you're having these open and refreshing conversations was very difficult. And particularly bad leaders that wouldn't learn, you know, even when they were capability managed, to try and help them change to become better kind of versions of themselves, kind of led an awful lot, particularly in the department I was, to a lot of people actually leaving the organization, good people leaving the organization that really couldn't go to their supervisors or, you know, to the higher senior management team within the organization to try and see any kind of change take place. And yeah, I've seen a lot of toxic cultures where, you know, they don't from the head up try to do this down, implement it down. And it is a sad thing to see, you know, in some of these kind of bigger organizations. I know the Thurpit and, you know, the challenges faced in these kind of roles, particularly within the NHS, is quite difficult, you know, as you mentioned about some of the clinicians and, you know, having a particular technical skill, but maybe not having the other kind of softer skills around it. So
yeah, absolutely.
There's an awful lot of change needs to come about. And these conversations, I think, are only the start.
100%. I mean, there's a lot as well in the sports industry where you've got absolute pure talent. We're talking in elite leagues. However, the way that they're dealt with by coaches, perhaps, you know, there's always coach the coach, may not bring out the best in them. It might actually make them a little bit worse before they walk out on court or pitch or arenas. So it's just the smallest change that you can make that will make the biggest difference. But unfortunately, I just see it so much in especially high performing and high delivering teams. But yeah, I think that's something that I definitely seen. But if you look at F1, for instance, sorry, going off tangent here, and you look at how Wolf manages his team, so he speaks a lot around, well, if someone doesn't change that wheel on time in that fraction of a second, then that actually impacts on me as a leader. Why have I not facilitated the space that person could you know, speak about? And you can't get you can't get higher pace than the F1 in my views. Like it's crazy. Obviously you've got A&E as well, but when you're doing work in F1 space, you really do see that the leaders do take that it is on me mindset and how that alleviates the team, which is why I think they're so efficient.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, there is very much like if the cleaner, you know, hasn't mopped that floor correctly and there's an oil slippage there, that then leads back to the leader. Why was that not picked up through the chain up to the leader? So there is that mindset as well. And I think if we adapted that, a lot of services would run just flawlessly, I would say.
I wish that Ola, maybe I can find it after and we can add it to the show notes. I would find that story, Tashila, you may remember it, where two surgeons at the Great Ormond Hospital were really frustrated about the processes, the lack of productivity, the lack of efficiency, the team didn't work together. And obviously that brings real risks, right? But they were also Formula One enthusiasts and watched Formula One together quite often. And decided to get in touch with the, at this time, top leadership team at Formula One, watching the pit stops and everything and how they work together, and brought those elements back into the theater, basically. and therefore could make massive improvements. The details, I will find them again, and Tushila, you may have them, worthwhile sharing.
Yeah, and there was also that strategy that you're talking about that was brought into, you know, the ER functions as well. So how does emergency response work in that way? And it actually, like, at the core of what they do, obviously there's the efficiency and the being very good at what you're doing and the talent, but it's how you lead a team that is emotionally intelligent to give them that superior that superior advantage, which is what in competition you're looking to do anyway. That is what they look at. So I'm very, very aware of that. It's an incredible study, and what you can literally lift it and put it into any organization, but you just
I think this is
buy-in.
the biggest thing, is the buy-in, isn't it?
Yeah,
but I think it's having these crucial conversations as well, guys, you know, so hopefully, you know, inspiring leaders or people in these kind of functions within the business can realize, you know, that, you know, there's so much that they're missing out on to get that team, you know, high performing, you know, stop people leaving the business, you know, higher productivity levels, and, you know, emotional well-being and happy employees, a productive employee, all these kind of things that they can tap into. And I think things are changing, though, slowly but surely. I think things are. And it's these kind of discussions, I think, that, you know, get people thinking about what, you know, what needs to, you know, happen within themselves as well, you know, and then obviously what they can implement and try and encourage around them. And it's exemplifying those behaviors too, I think, you know, because at the end of the day, we kind of, I suppose we become what we surround ourselves by and with as well.
That's an interesting point, because I think I can think of two situations in my career when I walked into those opportunities, and if I was honest with myself, I knew it wasn't right. Both of them ended in the wrong way, but at the heart of it is because I sense that the sort of culture within those organizations just wasn't.
They weren't ready to hear, maybe.
There was a toxicity to the culture, and you know, as you say, it's not. I like the point you make there, Sheila, about, you know, I'm not interested in what other people think, they're here to do a job. But I don't think we can argue with how we feel about how we go to work, because how we feel in our waking moments about the day ahead, how we feel on a Sunday night before a Monday, if Monday's our first working day of the week, and so on. Can't really argue with that. And no matter how we might deny that in ourselves, it comes to us loud and clear. And at some point, so I think that's an interesting way to broach emotional intelligence, that it's not the soft and fluffy. So in fact, to develop emotional intelligence is one of the most challenging journeys all of us will ever go on, really, continue to stay on. And I think that's, again, that picks up on an interesting theme, because there are implications for just each and every one of us. So I think it's a really interesting point that you made there, Sheila.
And could I build on that for a moment? Because both of you highlighted something so meaningful and important. And it's also good that we are stepping into the space of defining emotional intelligence more. And that is the part around being aware of your own emotions. And I want to highlight that doesn't mean you always have to be the greatest person in the room, feeling great, feeling upbeat, feeling positive, being super optimistic. This is not what it is about. This is about being tuned in to what's going on for you. And sometimes, well, it's fairly crap and it might not feel that good. And to also understand, okay, what does it mean now to how I approach the day, how I'm being with my team? Is there anything I can do to start to regulate that? And it might just be not the greatest day. So how am I going to get through the day? And I think there's also a lot of noise around, for example, authenticity. And I love the noise and I dislike the noise around it, because authenticity doesn't mean you spill all the beans and you share everything about your personal life. Authenticity is, can you be, or can you show up as yourself with your values, with your beliefs, even talking vulnerably about, this is not the greatest day I'm experiencing. So if I'm a bit withdrawn today and I'm not in touch all the time with you guys, not your fault. Please approach me still. I'm here for you. That's authenticity. You don't mask that you may have a day that feels more challenging, for example. So again, emotional intelligence, yes, be in touch. It gives you loads of insights. to what's going on for you, where it might come from, what you can do now going forward, including talking to somebody simply about what's happening there. And it can help people understand you better as well and build stronger and deeper connections. And I find that very important.
That's a very, very good point, actually, Kathleen.
We talked in the prep meeting for this podcast about vulnerability, if you remember, and
oh yes,
we did. Yeah. Very, very closely to what you said there, Kathleen. It's not about we can't all feel every day, of course we can, but it's like just that willingness to sort of share a little bit more of ourselves, and certainly do an exercise on the leadership program where I just get them to think about someone really impressive who they've worked with, so like an effective manager, an effective leader, and I say also going to do is let that person come to your mind, and then I'm just going to ask you to sort of reflect and discuss it between you and share your experiences of that person. And almost all of the components of the feedback are centered around emotional intelligence. They talk about leaders who have been transparent, open, approachable, have demonstrated vulnerability, have admitted mistakes. And then it's a brilliant precursor to saying, well, actually, this is what we're going to be focusing on in the following session, etc. And it's a really nice way to sort of highlight what it is without starting with the label, which I think the label itself can be a little bit, oh, what is that? You know, and it's a nice lead in to something that we can all think of those people. You know, you can do it the other way. You can see the worst manager leader you've ever worked with. You get a different story. But again, you still get the emotional intelligence components not being exhibited in that way. Yeah. So it's another approach perhaps to being able to introduce this to an organisation or to an individual.
Really good. It actually brings up another reflection, because in one of the first podcasts that I've ever been on as a guest, I was very blunt about myself. I said years ago when I started out in management, I used to be a real cow, and I still stand by that. I wasn't the greatest manager at all. I was myself so focused on delivering up on the targets and making sure German efficiency, right? We get the job done within the time frame and whatnot. I could sense, so speaking of this important part of self-awareness, right? I could sense when other people were put off by my behavior. I could sense when people didn't dare to approach me and ask some difficult questions. And I literally pushed it to the side. So I had the awareness, but I was so great at just blocking it. You know, it's not something that I need to deal with now. I have more important stuff to do. Really arrogant approach, basically. And I think in hindsight, and throughout all the years of my own growth and development and working with coaches and therapists and mentors myself, I think what I realized was I was very anxious of facing the reality and looking into that mirror, because it means you get some critical feedback. Nobody likes to be seen as a person, you know, who makes mistakes, who doesn't behave in the most role model-y way. And I was really nervous about it because I haven't grown up in a way where feedback was provided constructively and openly. It was often associated with bad conflict. And it's something I had to relearn. And nowadays, it's a big part of emotional intelligence for me to be aware, to let other people add to that awareness as well, and do that vice versa, so that we can maybe not remove all the conflicts. Conflicts can be super helpful, right, if managed well, but to work together so much more effectively and more openly. And what I keep repeating is to build more trusting and deeper relationships. Because when you work in a team, that's actually fun. That really trusts one another. Work changes. Commitment changes. It's just more joyful.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's okay to disagree. I think that's the point, isn't it?
That is it.
So how comfortable do you feel in disagreeing with what your line managers said, and how comfortable do you feel expressing that disagreement? And you know, you get those sort of cultural measures, I think, going through, and if you're sensing fear, that you often do, you're sensing hesitancy, and you're sensing that sort of fear of hierarchy, etc. All these things are, and I think Sheila, you mentioned earlier about that external. As an external, you can almost be that voice.
Yeah.
You can reflect that. You can say, well, I'm sensing this. You know, I've done this recently with a chief executive of an organisation, and they asked for some feedback, and I had to say, well, the reality is you've got a culture of fear.
Yeah.
And he sort of sat back and said, well, I could either say it or I could not. I decided to say it without fear. But this is evident. This is here, you know, and that was just very, very powerful situation. Was he surprised? He was outwardly surprised.
But you know, like that again, what you just pointed out, the obvious there, David, is actually what organizations are run on. Organizations nowadays, the majority are run on fear. So if you are sick, you will be monitored this way. If you have a bereavement, you have got X amount of time to get over it. If you know, we're again, the other podcast that unfortunately got cancelled, we've rescheduled, is around resilience. We're not resilient 24/7. Things happen in our lives which knock us. You know, I could have been resilient for 3 years, but I might have a 6-month period where I do dip. I'm going to be performance managed or capability managed, and you know, organizations are run on fear. However, if we flip that and run emotionally intelligent organizations, we catch the problem at the beginning. So you know, if you are sick, okay, how can we flex? You know, Kathleen, how can we flex to accommodate your need here so that you can still earn your money, but I can support you through the sickness? If you are, you know, not, if you're on a capability process, rather than putting you through a process, let's pinpoint where you need a bit of support here. What's going on? Let's join what's going on in your other world to what's going on here, and how can I facilitate that? And I think you know, to an extent, COVID and lockdowns fast-tracked that a little bit, because we showed that we have to look after kids and do the work. It is possible. We don't need to work between 9 to 5 necessarily. In most, some you do, some you don't. So I think it is this running out of fear baffles me, and that was my epiphany and my wake up moment, because I was being told to do things that didn't align with my values, my ethics, out of fearing like again, back to that school culture, isn't it? If you do this, you're going to be punished with this. We've literally just copied and pasted that into the corporate world, really. And then it's ridiculous. And then Kathleen, the things that you've spoken about, you know, how do we make that small changes? Well, I think we're doing it within the next generation anyway, right? So you're teaching your son, you know, we're all teaching our children different ways to approach different things. We now know that being neurodiverse could actually lead on to finding something incredible work-wise. You know, most entrepreneurs are neurodiverse, which is why they see things out of the box. We now appreciate that. We don't punish that. We don't put that in a box. But I think there's so much that we can do. It's about eliminating fear and just bringing in that emotional intelligence into people, because we all can do it, right? Unless you are a clinical psychopath, then, you know, that's slightly different. We'll go down a different route there. But you know, the majority of people are
a very small percentage. I do believe statistics.
Yeah,
don't do hold positions of power.
Oh yes,
I know.
was just
that's a whole different combo. That is.
Some people can't even do the acting.
That's customer 47 sorted then, Nola.
But yeah, no, I totally agree that I think everything that we've spoken about is just so linked, and I think we're in such a lucky position, right? I always say I really, really value, and I'm so grateful to be in the position that I'm in, because I have that vantage point that literally I'd say 98% of the working people don't have. We're able to keep that, right? Because that's what we do. We have to be able to do that to do our job, and we are so lucky that we've got that vantage point. And it's about opening that door for other people to see through, I think, is a big part of our work here.
Yeah, definitely education. Do we want anything add to? I know we've gone off a little bit off script. We have some questions. I don't know what time people have on this, so I think we've opened up a whole discussion on various different, you know, parts of emotional intelligence and leadership in the workplace. Is there anything else anybody wants to highlight, or I don't know what people's timings are like, so do we want to start drawing to a conclusion, or?
I think there's just scope to just carry this on in
I think so. Yeah, I think we could probably do a part 2, guys.
Do a part 2 and maybe pick a specific theme or some case examples. I think people would be really interested to hear about the work that we're involved in and you know, the impact of that. I think that'd be really interesting to be able to share.
That'd be good, David. Yes.
You want to, you know, share mine and hear yours, because I think that can only help us all, really. And maybe people watching or listening to this would sort of resonate with that. And you know, what I would say is that for people who are in organisations who are feeling not quite in sync with the organisation that they're in, it's not probably their fault. It's other things that are going on, and sometimes it can feel quite lonely in those places. And if we're feeling like we have to try and fit in, then something's not quite right. And I think that's quite interesting when you have those conversations as a coaching context and think, you know, there's other issues here, then at least that helps that person manage that situation, even if it's only temporarily. That can really help well-being and welfare. So it's that's just a little thought that came to me as we were talking there, that I thought I'd say.
Kathleen, any kind of?
I'm completely with David. I think there's so much food to go deeper.
There really is, isn't there? Yeah.
All practical
so many
steps.
Areas, isn't there?
Yeah. And one topic that Toshila brought up in the end that I might be worthwhile delving deeper into in the next session is you shared examples around neurodiversity, for example, that the awareness is there, people understand it, and there's so much more awareness, there's so much more data around emotional intelligence, around neurodiversity, and much more, and yet we seem to go in circles in society. We become aware, we try to take steps, and then we go backwards. And neurodiverse people, brilliant. I think we all are somewhat neurodiverse. We're all different. And yet you go through peaks of trying to understand where they come from, how the brain works differently, and so on and so forth. And then we go backwards, and it's strange, and I can't quite understand it. And where do these cycles come from? And there's an interesting talk around control and trying to hold on to control, because what I understand, what I know gives me control, which is strongly connected to emotional intelligence and your awareness of yourself and what gets in the way of letting go of control, for example, and so much more. So it could be an interesting topic to delve deeper into.
Yeah, no, definitely.
This is going to work beautifully if it's conversational, because we've got so much experience and perspective to offer, and that it just came to be. It was very obvious that it was going to do. And I, you know, as a viewer, I you know, obviously viewers will say, won't they? But I think there's enough there that will get the people thinking.
Yeah, there's enough to whet people's appetite, I think.
And to me, it just lends itself really nice, rather than a presentation on EI and, you know, and you know, you could go down that road, of course you can, but I think having professionals just talking about this, and from, you know, it's therapeutic anyway, isn't it? I mean, I found that therapeutic myself. So it's, you know, from an EI self therapy point of view, I found that really useful, actually. So.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap this up, guys. We'll post this one, see what people think, and then we'll discuss topics for round 2.
Great.
Great conversation. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Bye.